Here we are at the Miramichi Dragway with an NHRA day. There is lots to do and see today, so let's just jump right into it.
Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't be scared. Step it up, don't be scared. I'm so gone, no I'm never turning back. I won't stop, I'ma fight until there's nothing left. It's so what? You're gonna be hurting back, cause I've been to hell and back. You don't wanna make me mad, I stay strong. You will never see me crack. And if you get in my way, you gonna feel the wrath. Gotta say it to my face, money taking back. Mirror breaks after math, when I hate, I attack. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't be scared. Step it up, don't be scared. I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't be scared. Step it up, don't be scared. I'm so gone, no I'm never turning back. I won't stop, I'ma fight until there's nothing left. It's so what? You're gonna be hurting bad, cause I've been to hell and back. You don't wanna make me mad, I stay strong. You will never see me crack. And if you get in my way, you're gonna feel the wrath. Gotta say it to my face while he's looking back. Mirror breaks after math, when I hate, I attack. I'm immortal. When I feel like this, I'm immortal. When I feel like this, I'm immortal. When I feel like this, I'm immortal. Don't be scared. Just give me up. Don't be scared. Love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't be scared. Just give me up. Don't be scared. I'm so gone, no I'm never turning back. I won't stop, I'ma fight until there's nothing left. It's so on, you're gonna be hurting bad. Cause I've been to hell and back. You don't wanna make me mad. I stay strong, you will never see me crack. And if you get in my way, you're gonna feel the wrath. Gotta say it to my face while he's looking back. Mirror breaks after math. When I hate, I attack. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't be scared. Just give me up. Don't be scared.
So Paige Howe unable to make the call. So Jeremy Keen's on a bye run, competition bye. Gets down there, moves on to the next round. Keen runs 11:19, 117 miles an hour on that 11:15 dial. So now bringing Cale Johnson on the left side of the track, 83 Chevy Camaro. On the right side, Guy Desjardins out of St. Bruno, Quebec, bringing in the 67 Chevy Camaro. Johnson out of Milton, Nova Scotia. He's dialed in at 11:43. We got a 9:09 dial on Desjardins. That's right, folks. Dials are on the cars. The object of the game is go run as close as you can to your dial without breaking out, but you got to get the finishing line. So you got to get to the finishing line first, and that's where reaction time counts. And Guy Desjardins lights up the red bulb on the bottom of the tree, so it looks like Cale Johnson's moving on to the next round. 11:45, 116 miles an hour, good for the win. John Armstrong now bringing it in the Castro Lane out of Melbourne Square. brings that machine in with a $978 that Camaro. On the right side, that'll be Andrew McDonald out of Moncton, New Brunswick, the 66 Chevy Bel Air with a 396 big block. He's dialed in at 1145. So Armstrong, $978 on that 69 Camaro. 396 big block power in the Camaro, brings that out of Melbourne Square, Nova Scotia. And the win leg goes to John Armstrong. It's a double breakout, but Armstrong comes out on top, runs a 975 with a 3 on a 978 dial. Reaction time does the job. Andrew McDonald's way under 1134 on a 45. Chris Howe now bringing in the 1970 Dodge Challenger out of Quispamsis, New Brunswick. He's got a 426 big block Hemi, 1004 dial. On the right side, Tommy Coughlan out of Renews. It's an 88 Ford Mustang with a 351 small block Ford with a 1045 dial. And looks like Tommy Coughlan moving on to the next round, 1049 on a 45, but Hal goes 005 on the wrong side of the tree, goes red. So Tommy Coughlan moving on to the next round. Corey Sprague's bringing it in the Castro Lane, 72 Plymouth Duster. Brings that out of Norton, New Brunswick, sponsored by Belle Isle Machines. Belle Isle Bay Machines, I should say. Gary Keen's on the right side out of Brooklyn, bringing in the 67 Chevy Camaro, 350 small block power. 1093 dial on the Camaro, 1142 dial on the Duster. And Corey Sprague goes 002 on the wrong side of the tree, goes red, so it looks like Gary Keen's moving on to the next round. Keen's 1094 with a 7, 118 miles an hour, good for the win, takes the Camaro to round 2. Colton Howell now bringing it in on the left side of the track, brings that machine out of Rossay, New Brunswick, puts 1152 dial on that thing. It's a 98 Dodge Dakota. On the right side, Dominique Desjardins, the 69 Chevy Camaro, 396 big block power, and 990 is the dial, brings that out of Chamblay, Quebec. Dominique Desjardins breaks out, goes 987 on that 990 dial, so the Camaro's out, and Colton Howell in the Dakota's moving on to the next round. Runs 1153 on 1152. Bruce Riley now bringing it in the Castro Lane, brings in the 71 Chevelle SS, got a 454 big block in that machine, comes out of Lake Echo, Nova Scotia, dialed in at a 919. Doug Harper at a Dieppe bringing in the 69 Plymouth Barracuda, 1285 dial on the Cuda. Doug Harper moving on to the next round. Red light for Bruce Rowley on the left side. Looks like he had a problem hooking her up too. So 1284 is good for the win for Harper, 102 miles an hour. Alan Harper bringing in the 1980 Dodge Murata. Napa Auto Parts, Allen's Discount Parts and Driveline Receive, sponsored on the Murata. On the right side, Terry Kelson, the 214 Ford Mustang. Alan Harper lights up the red bulb on the left side, so Terry Kelson moving on to the next round, goes 985 on that 970 dial, 138 miles per hour. Fred Tebow bringing in the 69 Chevy Camaro from Wilmot, Nova Scotia on the left side. On the right side, Bill Shepard in that 73 Plymouth Duster. So William Clark bringing it in on the left side of the track out of Chester Basin, Nova Scotia. Bringing in the 71 Chevelle SS, got a 454 in that machine, 1125 dial. On the right side, Mike Ingram out of Middle Sackville, the 68 Chevelle, 1123 dial on that machine. Mike Ingram for the win, 11:22, 116 miles an hour. It was a double breakout, but Ingram comes out on top. Clark had a 11:24 on a 25. Nice tight race. Campton bringing in the 67 Camaro, 1091 dial, right side 1010 dial for Phil Archibald in that Chevy Corvette. Campton lights up the red bulb on the left side, so Phil Archibald moving on to the next round. 1010 was his dial, that was a 1015 with the 4, 130 miles an hour. Don Lavoie now on the left side of the track, 214 Chevy Capo Camaro on the right side, Rene Goslin bringing that 68 Chevelle. Trevor Irvin's 1084, 103 miles an hour on that pass on the right side. So it was a competition buy. No show for Dan Nickerson. So Billy Irving gets a competition buy. The 69 Chevy Corvette is going to go to the next round. Wendell Howe now bringing it in. His opponent, Dave Garland, unable to make the call, broke the car yesterday, so Wendell Howe will get a competition buy into the next round, the 1968 Plymouth Cuda from Kierstedtville, New Brunswick. Jeff Stackhouse bringing it in on the left side of the track out of St. John, New Brunswick. 94 Chevy Beretta with a 385 stroke of power on the right side. Danny Danjou, 77 Chevrolet Corvette. Danjou's automotive sponsored out of Rimouski, Quebec. 990 is the index lit on the board, folks. The object of the game is to run as close as you can to 990 without breaking out, but you got to get the finishing line before your opponent to win. And we're in the first round elimination of Super Gas coming at you. And Danny Danjou comes out on top. It's a double breakout. Danjou moves on to the next round. He goes 988 with a 9 on that 990 dial. Stackhouse way under, 976 on the 990. Jim Burns now bringing it in the Castro Lane. 86 Ford Mustang with a 351 small block Ford. Keels Construction Grand Bay. Surefit Automotive St. John. On the right side, that'll be Gary Pazavon out of Gardner Mines, Nova Scotia. The 88 Ford Mustang with a 514 cubic inch. And at the bottom, the win light's going to go to Jimmy Burns. A 10:04, 119 miles an hour, good for the win. Pazabon breaks out, goes 976. Jim Morrison on the left side, bringing in the 02 Spitzer Dragster out of Amesdale, Nova Scotia. 84 Chevy Camaro, 565 cubic inch, City Auto Body on the right side. That Mr. Todd Myers out of East Coast, Prince Edward Island. So the Buick Opal moving on to the next round, 10 seconds at 150 miles an hour. Jim Morrison will get the win. Todd Myers breaks out, goes 982 on that pass. Win light goes to James Cowie at 10:06, 137 miles an hour in that Chevy Roadster. Gillis doing some bouncing there in the Camaro, but runs 10:26, so Dawson Toome bringing it in now. 95 Chevy Corvette on the left side, 540 big block power. On the right side, James Lyon out of Glace Bay, Nova Scotia. The 80 Chevy Malibu, 434 cubic inch, small block Chevy power. Toome's bringing his machine out of Hunter River, Prince Edward Island in that Corvette. And the win leg goes to Dawson Toom in the Corvette. He goes 993 with an O on that 990 index, 150 miles an hour. Takes that Corvette to the next round. Benny Easton bringing it in the Castro Lane out of Millville, Nova Scotia. 1972 Chevy Nova with a 434 small block. You'll line up beside Noel Peach on the right side in your Pro Construction Lane. The 86 Chevy Camaro with a 427 cubic inch from Upper Tathlon, Nova Scotia. And the win leg goes to Benny Easton. Breakout for Noel Peach, a 986 on that 990 index. A little bit of reaction time for Neeson. Gets the win, goes 991 with a 5 on a 990. Rich Boyd bringing it in now, the 69 Plymouth Roadrunner out of Belle Isle Creek. 500 cubic inch of Mopar power. On the right side, Chad Ramsey bringing in the 1970 Chevy Camaro out of Wellington, Prince Edward Island. This is your 1090 Super Street coming at you, folks. The boards are lit up. The index is 1090. Richard Boyd moving on to the next round, 1093 with an 8 on that one. Candy Minton bringing it in, 93 Ford Mustang in your Castro Lane. On the right side, Chick Coughlin bringing in the 2000 Chevrolet Camaro. And Chick Coughlin moving on to the next round goes a 1088 with a 4, 127 miles an hour. A little bit of a breakout, but Candy Minton goes 1082 with a 2. John Rankin bringing in the 84 Ford Mustang on the left side out of Mount Uniacke. On the right side, Tyson Cowie out of Thunder Bay, Ontario, bringing in the 82 Chevy Camaro. John Rankin on the left side, Tyson Cowie on the right, and Cowie lights up the red bulb at the tree, so it looks like John Rankin's moving on to the next round. Runs a 1085, 130 miles an hour, takes that Ford Mustang to round 2. Paul Weir now bringing it in left side of the track out of New Ross, Nova Scotia. Brings in the Ford Mustang with the Chevy Power. That's right, 383 stroker Chevy Power under the hood. John Groff out of Black House on the right side, 81 Capri. 408 cubic inch, Keen's Mechanical Service, Ian's Automotive sponsored machine on the right side. Weir moving on to the next round. Red light on both sides, but Weir comes out on top. We'll take the Ford Mustang to round 2. And the win light goes to Conrad Neeson. That's right, Conrad runs a 1095 with a 4 on that pass. Nice 003 reaction time, takes the Ford Mustang to the next round. Champ breaks out on the left side. Mo Belbo bringing it in on the left side in the Castro Lane, 79 Plymouth Roadrunner, 434 small block power. On the right side, Jean-Yves Gagnon out of Quebec, bringing his 67 Acadian Kenso, 427 cubic inch under the hood. Win leg goes to Jean-Yves Gagnon, 1080, 125 miles an hour to the breakout, but Mo Bellivo buries at 1011, goes way too fast. And a bye run for J.D. Mugga, that's right, he'll take that 74 Nova SS to the next round. 1092 with an 8, 126 miles an hour, and takes it to round 2. So Justin Cummings now pulling it in. That's right, your first pair bringing in for Super Comp. These guys are the 890 index, so the boards are lit up 890. Justin Cummings out of Bloomfield, New Brunswick on the Castro Lane. 08 Chevy M&M Dragster, 509 cubic inch. On the right side, Ashley Walker out of Sackville, Nova Scotia in your Pro Construction Lane, bringing in her 2004 Race Tech Dragster. It's got a 582 big block Chevy Power. Justin Cummings lighting up the wind light on that side and left side, 891 on that 890 index, 153 miles an hour. Breakout on the right side, ran at 885 for Ashley Walker. Brett Ramsey bringing in the 07 Race Tech Dragster on the left side of the track, 582 cubic inch. On the right side, that'll be Mark Green out of Berwick in the 01 Race Tech Dragster. Wind light goes to Brett Ramsey, 893 with a 1 on that 890. Green goes 887 with an 8, breaks out. Trevor Cowie now bringing it in the Castro Lane, brings that machine out of Doketown, New Brunswick. Big block power in his dragster, and looks like he'll be lined up beside Jim Morris. Trevor Cowie, 894 for the win. That's right, 894, 166 miles an hour. Morrison had an 892, but reaction time does the job for Cowie and takes that to the next round. Glenn McLean out of Hunter River, Prince Edward Island. McLean's bringing it in the Castro Lane. Big block, Chevy power in that machine. And he's lined up beside Dave Anthony out of Mount Pearl, Newfoundland on the right side. And Glenn McLean moving on to the next round goes a 492 with a 9 on a 491 dial. Anthony had a little bit of reaction time to on him, an 029 to an 035. We run a 457 with a 1. 6/1000 margin of victory at the bottom, and Glenn McLean takes the win. Josh Goodwin bringing it in now, 2010 Diamond Dragster, 572 big block power out of Wellington, Prince Edward Island. Goodwin's Auto, Andy's Tire sponsored, 497 dial. Doug Rathall is going to line up beside him in the Pro Construction Lane with the 2011 Dan Page Dragster. He's got a 572 big block Chev dialed in at a 463. Josh Goodwin, good for the win, 498 with a 4 and a 497. Reaction time does the job. Rathall at a 464 with an 8 on a 463, but 020 light for Goodwin does the job and gets him to the next round. Jason McNeil now bringing it in out of Stellarton, Nova Scotia. Brings that thing into the Castro Lane. It is a 97 Spitzer Dragster, 632 big block power. Stella's Lawn Care sponsored with a 473 dial. Simon Goslin out of Quebec on the right side in the Pro Construction Lane bringing his dragster in. He's got it dialed in at a 5 seconds flat. And Jason McNeil moving on to the next round. Simon Goslin breaks out. Bringing in the power. Doug Forbes bringing in that blown alcohol dragster on the right side of the track out of Douglas, New Brunswick. And Hal Sherman out of Stanley Bridge, Prince Edward Island is going to line up beside him in the Castro Lane. So 420 dial on Doug Forbes on the right side. So 490 dial on the left side for Hal Sherman. Doug Forbes for the win, 445 on a 420. Reaction time does the job for Forbes. Chris Posabon now bringing it in the Castro Lane, 2000 red Ed Quaid Dragster, 555 cubic inch out of Gardner Mines, Nova Scotia. 492 dial on that machine for Posabon. Todd Chase out of Pine Glen, New Brunswick, bringing in the 216 Mad Docs Dragster, 615 cubic inch big block Chev power, 442 dial. Chris Posabon lights up the red bulb on the left side, so Todd Chase moving on to the next round. Chase runs a 443 with a 5 on a 442. So Chris Hobart on the left side of the track bringing in the dragster, big block power, 474 dial. On the right side, Lynn Cormier, 63 Chevrolet Corvette, Castor Oil Arsenal cylinder head sponsor with a 482 dial. And looks like Chris Hobart moving on to the next round. Lynn Cormier breaks out, run a 480 on a 482 dial, 147, too fast, breaks out. Now we're bringing in Eric Arsenault on the left side of the track out of Moncton, bringing in the drag radio car, 482 dial on Eric. On the right side, Brian Toombs out of Hunter River, Prince Edward Island, bringing in the big block Chevy powered dragster with a 481 dial. And Brian Toombs, a 493, good for the win. No hook for Eric on the left side. Now we bring in Wyatt Rankin out of Mount Uniacke, Nova Scotia on the left side of the track. Brings in the dragster. 484 dial on Rankin. On the right side, Lauren Buchanan out of Bedford, Nova Scotia, bringing his machine in. And it's dialed in at a 531. And looks like Wyatt Rankin moving on to the next round. Breakout for Buchanan goes 521 on that 531. Rankin's 585 or 485 on a 484 dial. Good for the win. Takes it to the next round. Dave Powell now bringing it in the Castro Lane. 92. Actually, it's a Ford Mustang. 632 big block power. Brings that out of Bay Roberts, Newfoundland. He's going to line up beside Sebastien Levesque out of Rimouski, Quebec, the 2023 dragster on the right side. So 464 dial on the dragster, 472 dial on the Mustang. And win leg goes to Dave Powell, 473 on that 472 dial, 007 reaction time on top of that. Sebastian had a 004 reaction time, whoa, on the wrong side of the tree though. He goes a 463 with a 547 miles an hour on that 464 dial and breaks out. So here we go, first round elimination of your NHRA bike and sled coming at you. Bringing them in, Glenn Frizzle, 2000 Arctic Cat Thundercat. Brings that machine out of Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. It is the Toy Master Motorsports, Sherwood Farms, Horton Mechanical sponsor, dialed in at a 10 seconds, and he has a buy run. And Frizzle runs a 10:01 with a 6, 129 miles per hour. So now we're bringing up Stuart Ferguson out of Bedford, Nova Scotia on the left side of the track. He dials his machine in at 11:14. Wayne Morris will line up beside him in the Pro Construction Lane out of Westville, Nova Scotia with a 9:38 dial. And looks like Wayne Morris moving on to the next round, 948 on that 938 dial, 131 miles an hour. Reaction time does the job. So Dylan Bolger now bringing it in the left side of the track in the Castro Lane. It brings that machine out of Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, and dials it in at a 1327. Mike O'Neill line up beside him out of Moncton in the 06 Suzuki drag bike. Mike's got her dialed in at 833, so we're talking like 4.94 seconds difference in the dial. And almost a 5-second difference in the dial here, folks. Away goes Dylan, and away goes Mike. Looks like Dylan's might get that one. Mike kind of spun the tires. Let's see at the bottom. Win light goes to Mike. Got him. Mike O'Neill. Dylan broke out. 1324 on a 27. So Shane Bolger now bringing it in. 1052 dial out of the Kawasaki ZX 9R. Brings that machine out of Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. 1052 dial. Gordon Ferguson will line up beside him out of Holmville, Nova Scotia. It's an 83 Honda CB 1100F. 1052 dial on it. So 1052 on the right, 1052 on the left. It's a heads-up race. First one down without breaking out. We'll move on to the next round. Win light goes to Shane Bolger, 1055 at 128 miles an hour. Moves on to the next round, that Kawasaki ZX 9R. So Brian Head now bringing it in, 97 Honda CBR 1100 XX, 1054 dial on it in the Castro Lane. In the Pro Construction Lane, Brenton Easton bringing in the 95 Suzuki GSXR, 1040 dial on Neeson. So Brian Head gets the win, moves on to the next round, 1053, 121 miles an hour, takes that Honda CBR to the next round. So it looks like Remy Bear unable to make the call, so Mike Arsenault gets a competition buy into the next round, the 2002 Hartley Night Train. First round elimination of your NHRA juniors coming at you. That's right, this is your first round elimination. So Lily Arsenal bringing it in on the left side of the track. The 2008 KCS Outlaw Junior Dragster. Brings that machine out of Lutz Mountain. It is the EA Delivery City Central Auto sponsored, 790 dial. On the right side, Aiden Justison bringing that machine out of Grand Bay, New Brunswick. It's an 04 motivational junior dragster. Adam Justice Motorsport, Keels Construction, Ron McCarrack's Trucking sponsored, 890 dial. Light goes to Lily Arsenal. Red light on the right side for Justison. So Lily's 793 on that 790 dial. Good for the win. Takes it to the next round. JC Posabon now bringing it in on the left side of the track. She brings in the junior from the Gardner Mines area. It's an 09 Mike Boss Junior Dragster with a 790 dial. Casey Sprague's on the right side bringing in the 01 Spitzer Dragster. Why Not Performance. Brimmer Dog Obedience. 948 dial. And the win light's going to go to JC Posbon. She runs a 787 on that 790 dial. A little bit of a breakout, but Casey Sprague runs 930 on a 948. So JC Posbon moving on to the next round. Jax Goodwin now bringing it in the Castro Lane on the left side. 2008 Mike Box Junior Dragster. Sponsored by Goodwin's Auto, Don Gallant's Welding, and City Auto Body. 891 dial on Jax. Charlie Hughes on the right side will line up beside him in the Pro Construction Lane. The 08 S&W Dragster. Modeling Warehouse, Dump Daddy CA, and Muller's Auto. And looks like Charlie Hughes moving on to the next round. 1357 on a 1349 dial. Breakout for Goodwin. Went 890 on a 91. Hudson Coldwater now bringing it in on the left side of the track in your Castro Lane. He brings in the E&E Power Line TDC logging sponsor machine. Dials it in at a 959. On the right side, Hunter Merchant bringing in the 2010 Mike Boss. 841 dial on it. Brings that out of St. George, New Brunswick. Griffin & Son, Jamie Scrap Metal, AM Mechanical Service. Some of the sponsors on board for Merchant. And the win light goes to Hunter Merchant. Runs at 840 with a 7 on that 841 dial. A little bit of a breakout. Coldwater goes 956 on a 959 dial. So Hunter Merchant gets the win light, moves on to the next round. Carter McLean now bringing it in left side of the track out of Hunter River, Prince Edward Island. Brings in the McLean Performance City Auto Body sponsor machine with a dial of 872. In the Pro Construction Lane, Kean Hogan bringing in the 2010 Vic Junior Dragster. 803 dial on it. Brings that out of Bounty Creek, New Brunswick. .877, 72 miles an hour for McLean, and good for the win. That's right, that 872 dial. Run the 877 with a 5. Takes it to the next round. Reaction time does the job for McLean. Jed Goodwin now bringing it in the Castro Lane. He brings in the Goodwin Auto Sales, City Auto Body, Don Gallant's Welding sponsor machine with a 1390 dial. And his opponent unable to make the call, so he'll get a competition buy run into the next round. Last guy for no box in range 1 and 2. Last guy for no box in range 1 and 2. Madeline Justison bringing it in on the left side of the track out of Grand Bay, New Brunswick. The 218 E&E Junior Dragster. Adam Justice Motorsport, Keels Construction. Nikki Cake sponsor machine with a 790 dial. Casey McClively bringing it in on the right side out of 9 Mile River, Nova Scotia. Dialed in a 9 seconds flat on her Junior Dragster. And And Madeline Justison moving on to the next round, runs an 804 on that 790 dial. 005 reaction time does the job. And your top qualifier, Bryson McNeil, gets the first bye on the first round of elimination. Brings that machine out of Stoughton, Nova Scotia. And he runs a 787 at 83 miles an hour, 787 with 5 at 83 miles an hour, and takes it to round 2. So Riley Green on the left side of the track, bringing in the 96 Chevy Camaro, 1359 dial. On the right side, Ed Gildert in that 72 Dodge Demon with 1106 dial. Looks like Riley Green moving on to the next round. Red light for Ed Gildert on the right, so Riley will move on to the next round in the Chevy Camaro. That will bring up Dwayne Donovan on the Renews, bringing up that Chevy S10 on the left side of the track, 1119 dial. On the right side, Kevin Brown bringing that machine in. It's an 86 Oldsmobile Cutlass wagon, 1165 dial on the wagon. Dwayne Donovan for the win, 1126 on 1119 dial, 120 miles an hour, takes the next round. Kevin Brown had a light on him, but breaks out, goes 1161 on a 65. Terrell Provo on the left side of the track, bringing in the 02 Buick Regal, 1560 dial. Corey Sprague's on the right side, 1145 dial. Wind light goes to Corey Sprague's, 1140, 114 miles an hour on that pass, 1140, 114. Vernon Kierscott bringing in the 216 Chevy Camaro, 1236 dial. On the right side, Elliott Sprague, 98 Dodge Dakota with a 1420 dial. So Elliott Sprague, 1420, 91 miles an hour, good for the win on that 1420 dial. You'll take the Dakota to the next round. So it looks like Sean McGool is moving on to the next round. Red light on the right side for Mark Day. So McGool will take the Ford Ranger to the next round. Dugas on the left side of the track, bringing in that Chevy Corvette. On the right side, Andrew Savidan in the Dodge D100. 1137 dial on the Dodge, 1010 dial on the Corvette. And Savidan moving on to the next round in that Dodge D100. Goes 1138 on 1137 dial, 110 miles an hour, good for the win. Jamie Wilson bringing it in left side of the track, brings in the 2006 Suzuki GSXR, 948 dial. Ray Mayberry lined up beside him, 2012 Kawasaki ZX 14R Turbo, 765 dial. Jamie Wilson moving on to the next round, 10:05 on a 948 dial. He'll take the Suzuki GSXR to the next round. Chris Fairweather bringing it up now to Baxter's Corner, 2010 Chevrolet Colorado, dialed in at a 1232. Caitlin Joyce will line up beside him in the Pro Construction lane with a 79 Chevy Malibu, dialed in at a 964.
Super gas for the range. Let's get super gas for the range.
And the wind light goes to Chris Fairweather, 1233 on a 1232 dial, 111 miles an hour, takes that Colorado to round two. Sheldon Hogan bringing it in the Castro Lane on the left side of the track, the 87 Chevy S10. He's got that thing dialed in at a 1048. He'll line up beside Colin Newman in the Camaro on the right side, 1154 dial. And the wind light's going to go to Sheldon Hogan, runs a 1053 on a 1048 dial. Newman breaks out, runs 1152 on a 54. So Hogan will take the S10 to the next round. David Paulson bringing it in now, the 81 GMC Sierra from Glace Bay, Nova Scotia, dialed in at 1162. Nelson Lehman out of Langtang, New Brunswick, the 67 Chevy Camaro, dialed in at 858. Goes to David Paulson, 1164 on that 1162 dial. Good for the win, takes that GMC to the next round. Neeson breaks out, goes 854 on that last one. So Brandon McNeil now bringing it in left side of the track, 91 Ford Mustang. 9-second dial on that machine. On the right side, Sam Herper in the 73 Dodge Dirt Sport, dialed in at a 1092, and I believe Dagwood O'Brien is driving that machine today. And the wind light goes to Brandon McNeil, runs 9 seconds on a 9-second dial. 118 miles an hour, takes the Mustang to round two. Dan McGrath now bringing it into Castro Lane out of Dieppe, New Brunswick, in the Dodge Dakota. Dials that at 1105. Martin Colneau out of Quebec on the right side. The 91 Ford Mustang dialed in at a 1093. And Dan McGrath moving on to the next round. The Dakota runs 11-11 on the 1105 dial. 121 miles an hour. Takes it to round 2. So there you have it. So the bye run goes to Jeremy Keane. That's right, uneven number of cars. So Jeremy Keane's out of Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, gets to the bye run into the next round. The 83 Marty Carlo, 305 cubic inch. And Keane runs 11-14, 117 miles an hour, takes the next round. Now we're bringing in Cale Johnson on the left side of the track. Johnson bringing in the 83 Chevy Camaro from Milton, Nova Scotia, dialed in at 11:48. Tommy Kuglin, the 88 Ford Mustang, 351 small block Ford Power, dialed in at a 10:50 on the right side, brings that out of Renews, New Brunswick. And the winning light goes to Cale Johnson on the left side. He goes 11:48 with an 8 on that 11:48 dial, 111 miles an hour. Takes the Camaro to the next round. Colton Howe now bringing in the 88 Dodge Dakota. Actually, it's a 98 Dodge Dakota. It's got a 360 Mopar, small block Mopar power. Brings it out of Rothsay, New Brunswick, 11:53 dial. On the right side, Gary Keane's out of Brooklyn, Nova Scotia, 67 Chevy Camaro, 1097 dial. And Colton Howe lights up the red bulb at the bottom of the 3, so Gary Keane's moving on to the next round. 1097 is what he's shooting for. At the bottom runs a 1093 with a 4, 119 miles per hour. Takes the Camaro to the next round. Terry Kelson bringing that machine in on the left side of the track. Brings that out of Utopia, New Brunswick. It is a 214 Ford Mustang. On the right side, Bill Shepard bringing in the 73 Plymouth Duster from Lakeview, Nova Scotia. So a 970 dial on the Mustang, 1122 dial on the Duster. John Armstrong on the left side of the track bringing in the 69 Camaro, 976 dial on the right side. Mike Ingram, 1122 dial on the Chevelle. Ingram's 1166, 79 miles an hour on that pass, good for the win. And Trevor Urban moving on to the next round, 1083 on that pass on the Nova. Bringing in Doug Harper on the left side of the track, 69 Plymouth Barracuda. On the right side, Billy Urban, the 69 Chevy Corvette. So 1284 dial on Harper, 884 dial on Urban. Wind light goes to Doug Harper, 1267, 102 miles an hour on that pass, takes the next round. Rene Goslin bringing in the 68 Chevelle SS on the left side of the track. On the right side, Phil Archibald, the 68 Corvette. 1096 dial on the Chevelle, 1018 dial on the Corvette. Vinny Desjou, left side of the track at Rimouski, Quebec, 77 Chevy Corvette, 990 is the index on both cars. Benny Neaston on the right side, 72 Chevy Nova. Jim Morrison on the left side, James Cowie on the right. And win light goes to James Cowie at 996 with a 3 on that pass. Breakout for Morrison goes 989 with a 1. Jim Burns now bringing it in left side of the track. 86 Ford Mustang from Rothsay, New Brunswick. Dawson Toombs on the right side in the pro construction lane, that 95 Chevy Corvette. Toombs out of Hunter River, Prince Edward Island. Dawson Toombs 992, 141, good for the win. J.D. Mugg on the left side, Paul Weir on the right. Paul Weir 1097, good for the win on that 1090 index. So he'll take that Ford Mustang to the next round. Jean-Yves Gagnon bringing it in now to Quebec on the left side of the track, 1090 index on both cars. Chick Coughlin on the right side, 2000 Chevy Camaro. Light's going to go to Jean-Yves Gagnon. That's right, 1091 with an O on that 1090 index. Check out a little bit of reaction time on him, but breaks out, goes 1087 with a 3. John Rankin now bringing in left side of the track, 84 Ford Mustang. On the right side, Conrad Neeson bringing that machine out of Millville, Nova Scotia, 95 Ford Mustang. Rankin bringing his out of Mount Uniacke, Nova Scotia. John Rankin moving on to the next round. Red light for Conrad Neeson on the right side. Rankin's 1092 with a 1 on that 1090 index. Good for the win. He'll take the Ford Mustang to round 3. And now we're bringing up Richard Boyd. Looks like Richard Boyd picks up the bye run on this one. 1969 Plymouth Roadrunner out of Belle Isle Creek, New Brunswick. And Richard Boyd's 10.90 with an O. That's right, right on the dial on that pass. So it looks like he's ready for round 3. So bringing in Trevor Cowie, the 05 BMW dragster on the left side of the track. On the right side, Justin Cummings and his 08 M&M dragster. Trevor Cowie moving on to the next round. Run the number too, 890 with an O. Double 004 reaction time, so the package is there for the next round. Brett Ramsey with a bye run here at 07 Race Tech Dragster from Wellington, Prince Edward Island. Runs an 894 with an 8, 172 miles per hour. Jason McNeil bringing it in on the left side of the track, the 97 Spitzer Red Dragster, 473 dial on that machine from Stellarton, Nova Scotia. Stella's Lawn Care sponsor machine on the right side. Todd Chase out of Pine Glen, New Brunswick, bringing in the 216 Maddox Dragster, 443 dial on that machine. Chase, 444 with a 5, good for the win, gets there on that 443 dial. McNeil breaks out, goes 472 with an 8. Had a little bit of light on Chase, but Chase breaks him out at the bottom. So Todd Chase moving on to the next round. Chris Hobart now bringing it in on the left side of the track out of Grand Bay, Westfield, New Brunswick. And on the right lane will be Josh Goodwin out of Wellington, Prince Edward Island. So Hobart, 584 big block Chevy power in that Keels Construction Adam Justin Motorsports sponsored machine. And Goodwin sporting a 572 big block Chev out of the Goodwin's Auto Andy's Tires sponsor machine. So a 474 dial on the left, 497 dial on the right. And looks looks like Chris Hobart moving on to the next round. Josh Goodwin breaks out. Goodwin had a 497 dial, but comes across the finish line at a 496 with a 9. Breaks out. So it looks like Hobart with that 475 on a 474. Good for the win. Takes it to the next round. Glenn McLean now bringing it in the Castro Lane at a Hunter River, Prince Edward Island. He's going to line up beside another Islander, Mr. Brian Toombs, at a Hunter River, Prince Edward Island. So a 492 dial on McLean on the left side. Toombs got a 482 dial on the right side. And the wind light goes to Glenn McLean, 490 with an O. Red light for Toombs, 485 with a 4, but lights up the red bulb at the bottom, so McLean moves on to the next round. Now we'll bring Dave Powell out of Bay Roberts, Newfoundland, bringing in the Ford Mustang. He's got a 632 cubic inch in the Mustang, and is dialed in at a 472, brings that out of Bay Roberts, Newfoundland. Wyatt Rankin out of Mount Uniacke, Nova Scotia on the right side, 486 dial on his dragster. He's got a 602 cubic inch, big block power. It's sponsored by McLean's Performance, ProTech Roofing, and the Noble Upholsteries. And Dave Powell, good for the win, 476 on a 472 dial. Takes the Mustang to the next round. Heating up the hide on that dragster, Mr. Doug Forbes out of Douglas, New Brunswick on the right side. And Forbes gets the bye run, top qualifier. The 03 Dragster, Miller Dragster with the 532 cubic inch big block shed. Blower strapped on, burning alcohol. And Doug Forbes, 424 on that 420 dial, 168 miles per hour. And he'll take it to round 3. So it looks like Mike O'Neill's bringing it in on the left side in Castro Lane. The 06 Suzuki drag bike, home hardware, S&B powder coating sponsored. 838 is the dial. Brian Head on the right side in that 97 Honda CBR 1100 XX. 1052 dial on Head, brings that machine out of Moncton, New Brunswick. And Mike O'Neill gets down there. Can you... Yep, he's good for the win. 882, 112 miles an hour. He moves on to the next round. Glenn Frizzle bringing in the 2000 Arctic Cat Thundercat. Toy Master Motorsports, Sherwood Firms, Horton Mechanical sponsored, 1001 dial. Wayne Morris will line up beside him, the 07 Kawasaki ZX14. He's got Bolger Cycle, Sweatshop Creations, and Miller Time Racing for sponsors, dialed in at a 940. Looks like Wayne Morris moving on to the next round. Frizzle lights the red bulb at the bottom of the tree, goes red. So the bike, Kawasaki ZX14 of Wayne Morris, will move on to the next round. Runs a 941 with a 9 on a 940 dial. Mike Arsenault bringing it in now on the left side of the track in your Castro Lane. 2002 Harley Night Train, 1154 dial on that machine out of Grand Lake, New Brunswick. ON Sports, AM Mechanical Service, some of the great sponsors helping out Arsenault. Facing them will be Shane Bolger of Charlottetown, Prince Rhode Island. On the other lane, 99 Kawasaki ZX9R with a 1052 dial. And Shane Bolger, good for the win, 1061 with an 8, 128 miles an hour. Arsenault breaks out, goes 1148 on that 1154 dial. So Laura Hogan bringing it in on the left side of the track in your Castro Lane, the 05 Ed Quaid Rail Dragster from Coreyville, New Brunswick. Hogan's Family Racing, Patterson Sales and Service, Fixed Auto sponsor machine on the left side. On the right side, Lewis McDonald bringing in that 1970 Chevelle, 396 big block power at a New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. So 1150 dial on McDonald, 9-second flat dialed on Hogan. So it looks like Lewis McDonald moving on to the next round. Looks like Hogan rolled through the beams. So McDonald's 12-23, good for the win, takes that Chevelle to the next round. So now we're bringing in Skinny Bob Gallant on the left side of the track in the Castro Lane. Brings that machine out of St. Nicholas, Prince Edward Island. And he's going to line up beside Candy Minton out of Little Salmon River. Minton bringing in the Ford Mustang. Gallant bringing in the Dragster. So a 9-second dial on the Skinny Bob Galant's dragster, and Candy Mitten dialed in at a 10:44 on the Mustang. And Candy Mitten moving on to the next round, 10:46 on that 10:44 dial, 129 miles an hour. It looks like Skinny Bob rolled through the beams, came up left before third amber. So he's out, Mitten moves on. John Croft bringing it in now. The Ford Mustang out of Blackhouse, Nova Scotia, 1090 dial on the right side. Austin O'Donnell, 1120 dial on the 1980 Datsun 280 ZX. And the wind light goes too. Looks like Austin O'Donnell pulled one out there. 1119 on 1120 dial. John Croft breaks out 1089 with an O on a 1090. He had a double O2 reaction time, but breaks out at the bottom. So Austin O'Donnell moving on to the next round with the Datsun. Scott Tebow bringing in the 94 Pontiac Firebird out of Middleton, Nova Scotia on the left side. On the right side, Chad Ramsey out of Wellington, Prince Edward Island, the 1970 Chevy Camaro. 1090 dial on Ramsey, 13-second dial on Tebow. Ramsey for the win, 11:17, 109 miles an hour, taken to the next round. So David Paulson bringing it in the Castro Lane out of Glace Bay, Nova Scotia, the 81 GMC Sierra. On the right side, Jody Noble bringing the 218 chassis firm Slingshot. 850 dial on the Slingshot, 1162 dial on the step side. And looks like David Paulson moving on to the next round. Jody Noble left before the tree came down. So Paulson will get the win on that one. 1158 on that 1162 dial. Takes that GMC Sierra to round 2. So a 1008 dial on the bike, 1256 dial on the Ranger. Runs 1259, 99 miles an hour, and the Ranger moves on to the next round. Sean McGooey now bringing it in on the left side of the track. The 87 Ford Ranger. On the right side will be Steve Collins in the front engine dragster. 835 dial on Collins, 1088 dial on the Ranger. At the bottom, the wind light's going to go too. Looks like Sean McGooey gets it 1098 on 114 miles an hour on that 1088 dial. So an 821 dial on the left, 1105 dial on the right. Looks like Riley Green moving on to the next round. 891 with a 6 on that 887 dial. Chris Fairweather bringing it in now. 1232 dial on the left. On the right, James Lyon. 990 dial on the Malibu. And it looks like a red light on the left side for Chris Fairweather. So James Lyon's going to be moving on to the next round. So Lyons will take that 80 Chevy Malibu to the next round too. Dials a 990, runs 1106, 134. Conrad Neeson bringing it in down the left side of the track, bringing that machine out of Millville, Nova Scotia. 1080 dial on the Mustang. Jim Burns on the right side in his Mustang. It's an 86 Ford Mustang with 1130 dial. Takes his out of Ross, St. New Brunswick. Conrad Neeson moving on to the next round. The 95 Ford Mustang, good for the win. Daryl Poole now bringing it in left side of the track. JP Collision and Painting sponsored machine with a 932 dial out of Lawrencetown, Nova Scotia. JP Wilson on the right side out of Upper Golden Grove bringing in the 06 Suzuki GSXR, 948 dial on the bike. And Daryl Poole moving on to the next round in that Vega. That's right, 939 on that 932 dial, good for the win. Reaction time does the job for Poole. Todd Myers now bringing it in left side of the track, 84 Chevy Camaro, 565 cubic inch big block. City Auto Body sponsored, 990 is the dial. Elliot Sprague will line up beside him on the right side, 98 Dodge Dakota, the Belle Isle Bay machine sponsored machine with a 1420 dial. And looks like the win light will go to Todd Myers. Myers 991 on a 990. Good for the win, takes the next round. Elliot Sprague breaks out, goes 1416 on a 1420. So James Cowie now bringing it in. 84 Chevy Camaro, 1090 dial, brings that machine right out of Miramichi. Andy Charlton will line up beside him in that 73 Mercury Comet GT from Willow Grove, New Brunswick. It's got a 441 small block Ford stroker power, sponsored by Kiwi Auto Truck Center, SureFit Auto Parts, Celtic Transport, and CFD Mechanical. And James Cowie moving on to the next round was a 1096 with a 7 on that 1090 dial, 134 miles an hour. Charlton did some driving there. She went up a little too high, pulled to the left, and ended up with a 987 on the 961 dial. Albert Van Wickham now bringing it into Castro Lane. 94 Ford Mustang, Van Wickham diesel repair sponsored. 988 is the dial. Colin Newman will line up beside him, the 1980 Chevy Camaro, 1152 dial. The win light's going to go to Colin Newman. We'll be moving on to the next round in the Camaro. 1174 and 1152 dial. Now we'll bring in Blair Walker out of Sackville, Nova Scotia on the left side of the track in your Castro Lane. He'll dial 911 on that on the left side. On the right side, Mark Green out of Berwick will bring the dragster in. Dragster's dialed in at an 890. Blair Walker lights up the red bulb at the bottom. Mark Green gets the triple zip. That's right, perfect light. Runs 890 with a 6. Eric Douglas bringing it in now. The 1980 Chevy Corvette, 1022 dial on that machine. Cody Hobart on the right side of St. John. 67 Chevrolet Camaro RS SS dialed in at 873. Cody Hobart moving on to the next round, runs an 880 on that 873 dial. Reaction time does the job. Nelson Lehman bringing it in now, 67 Chevy Camaro, 852 dial on that machine out of Langtang, New Brunswick. On the right side, Peter Hobart out of Grand Bay, Westfield, bringing in the 67 Chevy 2 hardtop, 975 dial on the hardtop, 852 dial on the Camaro. Looks like Peter Hobart moving on to the next round. 976 on a 975 dial. Red light for Lehman on the left side. Brett Ramsey now bringing it in left side of the track. The 07 Race Tech Dragster from Wellington, Prince Edward Island. 890 dial. Raymond Roach will line up beside him in the 69 Buick Opel GT. 930 dial. Ramsey's moving on to the next round. And we do have Jamie Champ on the left side of the track, bringing that machine from Georgetown, Ontario, I believe. 78 Chevy Malibu, 1086 dial. And red light on the right side, so it looks like Jamie Champ and that Chevy Malibu is moving on to the next round. 1086 was his dial, run a 1086 with an 8. So Riley Green bringing it in down the left side of the track in the Castro Lane, 69 Plymouth. No, this is the Camaro he's got here. On the right side, Brandon McNeil in the 91 Ford Mustang. 1345 dial on the Camaro, 950 dial on the Mustang. Riley Green moving on to the next round, 1357 on a 1345 dial. So Ashley Walker on the left side in the dragster with an 890 dial. Mackenzie Power on the right side with an 890 dial. So heads up race. First one down without breaking out will get the win. Win light goes to Ashley Walker. Runs a 904 on an 890 dial, 170 miles an hour. And by run for Danny Walker. He'll bring in the 02 Chevrolet Camaro, 598 cubic inch big block. Looks like they're spraying it this weekend, folks. Putting the nitrous to it. It is the A1 Towing and Recovery, No Bulls Upholstery sponsor machine from Upper Sackville, Nova Scotia.
Bring it up.
And Walker runs a 795, 169 miles an hour on that pass, and he'll take it to the next round. So Lily Ursino making her way into the Castro Lane, brings in the 08 KCS Outlaw Junior Dragster, sponsored by EA Delivery Central Auto Parts, 790 dial. Hunter Merchant will line up beside her out of St. George, New Brunswick, in the 2010 Mike Boss Jr. Griffins and Sons, Jamie Scrap Metal, AM Mechanical Service, 840 dial. JC Pazabon, 790 dial on the left. Charlie Hughes on the right with a 1355. Looks like JC's moving on to the next round. She goes 792 on a 790 dial, 82 miles an hour. Good for the win. Takes it to round 3. Jed Goodwin bringing it in on the left side of the track. On the right side, Carter McLean. Jed Goodwin moving on to the next round. Red light for Carter McLean on the right side. So Madeline Justison bringing it in on the left side of the track. The 218 E&E Junior Dragster on the right side. Bryson McNeil bringing in his junior in. 07 KCS Junior Dragster. 790 dial on both machines, folks. And Madeline Justison does it. Perfect light, trip zip right across the board. And she runs a 791 with a 3 on a 790, 82 miles an hour, and takes out a tough competitor, Bryson McNeil, let me tell you. So Cale Johnson bringing it in now. 83 Chevy Camaro, 1145 dial on the left from Milton, Nova Scotia. Right side's going to be René Goslin out of St. Marie, Quebec. 68 Chevelle SS. And a red light for Cale Johnson on the left side, so it looks like René Goslin's moving on to the next rail. 1092 on that 1096 dial. He'll take the Chevelle SS to round 4. Mike Ingram now bringing it in on the left side in your Castro Lane. Brings in the 68 Chevelle on the Pro Construction Lane. That's a 73 Plymouth Duster, Bill Shepard. 1123 dial on Shepard, 1121 dial on Mike Ingram. And And the wind light's going to go too. Looks like Mike Ingram moving on to the next round. 1122 on that 1121 dial. 116 miles an hour. Breakout for Shepherd goes 1121 on 1123 dial. Jeremy Keen's now bringing it in the Castro Lane. 83 Marty Carlo. 1115 dial. Brings that machine out of Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. Gary Keen's will line up beside him. So it looks like father and son here. Gary's 67 Chevy Camaro on the right side. 1094 dial. Jeremy Keen's moving on to the next round, 11:18 on that 11:15 dial. Dad breaks out, goes 10:93 on a 10:94. Trevor Irvin now bringing it in on the left side of the track, brings in that 1970 Chevy Nova, 1070 dial. On the right side, Doug Harper with the 69 Plymouth Barracuda, dialed in at a 1265. Looks like Doug Harper lights the red bulb at the bottom of the tree, so Trevor Irvin will move on to the next round. 1061 on that 1070, good for the win. Takes the 70 Chevy Nova to round 4. All right, we got Jean-Yves Gagnon on the left side of the track, bringing in the Acadian Kenso, and on the right side, Richard Boyd bringing in the 69 Plymouth Roadrunner. 1090 is the index. The boards are lit. Getting closer and closer to the wall every round, folks. And who's moving on? Looks like Jean-Yves Gagnon's moving on. Boyd had a light on him, 008 to a 33. But Boyd breaks out, goes 1089 with a 7 on that pass. So Jean-Yves Gagnon will move on to the next round. That's 67 Acadian. John Rankin now bringing the 84 Ford Mustang in the Castro Lane. Brings that out of Mount Uniacke on the right side. Paul Weir out of New Ross, Nova Scotia, bringing in the 91 Ford Mustang. Win leg goes to John Rankin. Rankin 1089 with a 9. A little bit of a breakout. Paul Weir goes 1089 with a 3. So John Rankin's moving on to the next round. So we're bringing him in. Dawson Toombs on the left side, bringing in that 95 Chevy Corvette. 990 is the index on the boards. James Cowie will line up beside him with the 04 Chevrolet Roadster. Cowie out of Miramichi. Dawson out of Hunter River, Prince Edward Island. And the win light goes to James Cowie. Cowie goes a 990 with a 5. 160 miles an hour, takes the Roadster to the next round. Toom breaks out, 986 with a 3. Benny Neeson now bringing it in. Looks like a buy run for Benny. 72 Chevy Nova with the 434 out of Millville, Nova Scotia. Is going another round. And Neeson runs a 990 with a 1. 015 reaction time. I'd say he's ready for round 4. This is your Super Comp final. Brett Ramsey on the left side, the 07 Race Tech Dragster from Wellington, Prince Edward Island. On the right side, Trevor Cowie, the 05 B&W Dragster from Doketown, New Brunswick. And your winner's going to be Trevor Cowie. Runs 887 with a 2 on that pass. A little bit of a breakout. Ramsey goes 887 with a 1. Ramsey had a little bit of light on him. 015 to an 025. Trevor Cowie comes out on top. And your first pair bringing it in, Chris Hobart, bringing that machine in out of Grand Bay, Westfield on the left side of the track, 2010 Miller Dragster. And on the right side, Glenn McLean out of Hunter River, Prince Edward Island, bringing in his 213 Chrome Works Dragster. So 474 dial on Hobart, 489 dial on McLean. And looks like Chris Hobart moving on to the next round. Reaction time does the job. 475 with an 8 on that 474 dial. And now we're bringing in Dave Powell out of Ray Roberts, Newfoundland on the left side of the track, bringing in the Ford Mustang, 632 cubic inch big block power, Ford power. Doug Forbes out of Douglas, bringing in the blown alcohol dragster on the right side. 475 dial for the Ford Mustang, 424 dial for the dragster. And the win leg goes to Dave Powell, 476 on a 475 dial, 147 miles an hour. Doug Ford breaks out, had a 424 dial, ran a 422 with a 1. So Dave Powell moving on to the next round. Todd Chase bringing it in now. Looks like Todd Chase gets a bye run into the semifinals. Chase bringing that machine out of Pine Glen, New Brunswick. That is in the Riverview area. 444 is what he's shooting for in that 216 Mad Docs dragster. And Chase goes a 443 with a 158 miles an hour. Perfect light, too. That's right. Zeros right across the board. Trip zip for Todd Chase on his bye run. Should have saved that for the next round. Wayne Morris bringing it in at the track, onto the left lane in the Castro side. 07 Kawasaki ZX14, Bolger Cycles, Sweatshop Creations, Miller Time Racing sponsored, 930 dial. Shane Bolger will line up beside him with a 1052 dial on the 99 Kawasaki ZX9R. A couple of Islanders, or actually, Morris from Nova Scotia. Bolger's from PEI. Looks like Shane Bolger's going to the finals. Wayne Morris lights the red bulb at the bottom of the tree, so Shane Bolger with a 1052 dial runs a 1060 with a 3, and he'll be facing Mike O'Neill in the final, which gets a bye run to the final. Mr. O'Neill, he's in the right lane now. And Mike's just going to break the beams and back it back out where it's a bye run. All he's got to do is break the beams, so he's bringing in the 06 Suzuki drag bike. He brings that out of Moncton, New Brunswick.
Shit. We just had to break the beams.
So bringing him in, Chris Jesner bringing it in on the left side of the track, the 04 Suzuki Hayabusa, 1300 cc, Bolger Motorsport, Jester's Plastic Repair sponsor, 1005 dial. On the right, Ed Chapman out of Great Village. Bringing in the 2000 Chevrolet S10, C2 Automotive, and also it's for sale, folks, that's right, 1088 dial on the S10. And the win light's going to go to Ed Chapman in that S10, 1105 on that 1088 dial. Reaction time does the job. He'll take it to the next round. Chris Fairweather bringing it in now on the left side, 2010 Chevrolet Colorado. Jamie Scrap Metal, Craft Royal LePage, and Crafty K9 sponsored on that machine. On the right side, Tim Collins, the 82 Pontiac Firebird, 1035 dial on the Firebird, 1232 dial on the Colorado. And Tim Collins moving on to the next round, the 1038 on that 1035 dial, good for the win. Breakout for Fairweather goes 1225 on a 1232. Mandy Lehman now bringing it in, 69 Chevrolet Camaro on the left side, 1456 dial, brings that out of Penfield, New Brunswick. On the right side, David Paulson out of Grand Place Bay, Nova Scotia, 81 GMC Sierra, 1158 dial. Light's going to go to Mandy Lehman. She goes a 1453 on that 1456. A little bit of a breakout. Paulson runs 1150 on a 58. So Lehman moving on to the next round in the Camaro. Alan Murray bringing it in now. 67 Pontiac Firebird. Brings that out of Durham Bridge, New Brunswick. 1089 dial. On the right, Richard Legier bringing in the 1980 Pontiac Trans Am. 1316 dial. Alan Murray moving on to the next round, runs a 1097 on that 1089 dial. Breakout for Legier. Legier goes 13 seconds on a 1316 dial. Sean McGooey now bringing it in, 87 Ford Ranger out of Baxter's Corner on the left side of the track, 1088 dial. On the right side, 1343 dial on Carol Lehman's 79 Chevrolet Camaro. Sarah Lehman for the win. 1345 on a 1343 dial. 95 miles an hour. Takes it to the next round. Elliot Sprague bringing in the 98 Dodge Dakota on the left side of the track. Brings that at a Belle Bay machine. Sponsored. 1416 dial. On the right, Amber Humes bringing that 03 Yamaha RX1. 1168. And the win light's going to go to Elliot Sprague, 1414 on a 1416 dial. A little bit of a breakout, but Amber runs 1161 on a 68. So Sprague gets out on top and takes the Dodge Dakota to the next round. Riley Green bringing it in at Berwick, New Brunswick on the left side of the track. The 96 Chevrolet Camaro, 350 small block, 1345 dial. Glenn Frizzle will dial a 1072 on that 93 Arctic Cat Thundercat. Toymaster Motorsport, Sherwood Farm, Horton Mechanical sponsor machine. And looks like Glenn Frizzle on that one, 1077. Moves on to the next round, takes Riley Green out. Now we're bringing Corey Sprague, bringing in out of Norton, New Brunswick, the 98 Dodge Dakota. On the right side, Andrew Savinet, the 56 Dodge D100, 1136 dial on the And looks like Andrew Savinet moving on to the next round. Corey Sprague lights up the red bulb at the bottom of the tree. So Andrew Savinet will take the Dodge D100 to the next round. Runs 1137.5 on that 1136 dial. So Jamie Wilson now bringing it in, the 06 Suzuki GSX-R from Upper Golden Grove, New Brunswick, 948 dial. Dan McGrath will line up beside him, the 93 Dodge Dakota. Brings that out of Dieppe, New Brunswick, 1111 dial on the Dakota. And the win light goes to Dan Page, Dan McGrath, in that Dodge Dakota. Goes 11-17 on an 11-11 dial, 116 miles per hour, takes it to the next round. So Brandon McNeil out of Mount Uniacke, Nova Scotia, bringing it in on the left side of the track. He brings in the Ford Mustang, dialed in at a 990, I believe it is. Yep, 990 dial on McNeil. Sheldon Hogan on the right side, dialed in at a 1050 in the 87 Chevy S10. And Sheldon Hogan moving on to the next round was 1044 on the 1050 dial, 130 miles an hour. And Dwayne Donovan with a bye run into the next round. That's right, out of Renews, New Brunswick, the 88 Chevy S10, 1119 dial. $11.19 dial on Donovan. That's what he's shooting for. We'll see how he makes out at the bottom. Runs her through. 11:17 with an 8, 118 miles an hour, takes the S10 to the next round. Jed Goodwin bringing it in now on the left side of the track. Jed brings his machine out of Wellington, Prince Edward Island. And Jed sponsors Goodwin Auto Sales, City Auto Body, Donnie Gallant Welding. On the right side, Lily Arsenault bringing it in the Pro Construction Lane, the 08 KCS Outlaw Junior Dragster. Brings that out of Lutz Mountain, New Brunswick. EA Delivery, Central Auto sponsored, 791 dial on Arsenault, 1390 dial on Goodwin. And the win light goes to Lily Arsenault's moving on to the next round. Looks like she's going into the finals. Jed had a light on her, but he run a 1408 on that 1390 dial, and Lily was at a 795 on the 791 dial, so 27 1,000th margin of victory at the bottom. Lily Arsenault moving on to the finals. JC Posabon now bringing it in out of Gardner Mines, Nova Scotia on the left side of the track. And it looks like Madeline Justison is going to be on the right side. So Posabon bringing in the 09 Mike Boss Junior Dragster from Gardner Mines, Nova Scotia, 790 dial. Justice is bringing it in out of Grand Bay, New Brunswick. It's a 218 E&E Junior Dragster, and it's sponsored by Adam Justice Motorsport, Keels Construction, and Nicky Cakes. $7.90 dial on it, so both dialed in at a $7.90. Looks like it's a heads-up race. First one down without breaking out will win. Win light goes to Madeline Justices. Looks like she is going to the final against Lily Arsenault. So there you have it. She ran a 7.93 on that 7.90 dial. Reaction time does the job and takes that E&E Junior Dragster to the next round. Posabon 7.92 on a 7.90 dial. All right, we're bringing them in. Renee Goslin on the left side of the track out of St. Marie, Quebec, bringing in the 68 Chevelle SS 396 with a 1096 dial. Mike Ingram lined up beside him in the middle Sackville. Still could reach that second Wally Ingram. 1122 dial on his Chevelle. Bottom the win light's going to go to. Looks like Mike Ingram is going to the finals. That's right. 1122 dial run. 1121 with a 7. But Goslin went 1093 on a 1096. Reaction time does the job for Ingram, and he'll take that Chevelle to the next round, and that will be the finals. Trevor Irvin now bringing it in left side of the track. 1970 Chevy Nova. 1065 dial on that machine from Nerpus, New Brunswick. Jeremy Keynes is lined up beside him on the right side in the Pro Construction lane out of Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. The 83 Chevy Monte Carlo with 1116 dial, so a 1064 dial on the left, 1116 dial on the right. And the win light goes to Jeremy Keynes, going to the finals against Mike Ingram. That's right, 1113 with a 9 on that 1116 dial, a little bit of a breakout, but Irvin goes 1058 on a 1065. So Keene comes out on top. Reaction time does the job, and he's going to the finals against Mike Ingram. Bringing it in now, John Rankin out of Mount Uniacke on the left side of the track, 84 Ford Mustang. On the right, Jean-Yves Gagnon of Quebec, bringing in the 67 Acadian Kinso. Rankin with the 408 cubic inch, 427 cubic inch for Jean-Yves on the right. This is the 1090 Index final coming at you. Win light says he's going to go to Nova Scotia. Mr. John Rankin picked up first place and picks himself up a Wally in that 84 Ford Mustang. 1090 was the index. He goes 10.89 with a 9. Jean-Yves had a little bit of a light on him, had a 027 light to an 041, but Jean-Yves runs it through at a 1089 with a 6. So Benny Neeson bringing it in the left side of the track. In the Castro lane, he brings that out of Millville, Nova Scotia, the 72 Chevy Nova with the 434 small block stroker power. James Cowie's facing him in the right lane in the Pro Construction side. 2004 Chevrolet Roadster, 598 cubic inch big block Chevy power, sponsored by Bartender. The winner will pick up a Wally. Here we go. 2 green lights. And Benny Neeson picks himself up a Wally. Both pretty near identical lights. 026 for Neeson, 025 for Cowie. But Cowie goes 987 with a 9 and breaks out. Neeson's 991 with a 9 is good for the win and picks himself up a Wally. Congratulations to Benny Neeson on the Wally and James Cowie on runner-up. And bringing it in the Castro lane, that is a Dave Powell out of Bay Roberts, Newfoundland, bringing in that Ford Mustang with the big block power, 632 cubic inch of it. And in the Pro Construction lane, Todd Chase out of Pine Glen bringing in the 216 Mad Dogs Dragster, 615 cubic inch big block power, 443 dial on Chase, 475 dial on Powell. Win light goes to Dave Powell. Powell runs a 479 on that 475 dial, takes Todd Chase out. Reaction time does it for Powell. 002 reaction time to Todd's 032. So Todd's 446 on a 43, could not touch the finishing line. So Dave Powell gets there first, gets the win, and will face Chris Hobart in the finals. So Chris Hobart on a bye run into the finals, bringing it in the right side in your Pro Construction lane, brings that machine out of Grand Bay, Westfield, New Brunswick. It's a 210 Miller Dragster with a 584 big block Chev, and it's sponsored by Keels Construction Limited, Adam Justice's Motorsport, And it's looking for a 474 on the dial. .108 on the 60-foot, half track at 145 miles an hour. So 477, 145 miles an hour. And he will go to the finals. So bringing it in on the left side of the track in your Castro Lane, Mike O'Neill out of Moncton, New Brunswick, bringing in the 06 Suzuki drag bike. Home hardware, SB powder coating sponsored, 837 dial on the drag bike. Shane Bolger bringing in the 99 Kawasaki ZX 9R from Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, 1052 dial on Bolger. Michael Neal picks up a Wally, first place right there, runs an 854 and an 837 dial, 145 miles an hour. And it looks like the Suzuki drag bike picks up a Wally, and Shane Bolger is the runner-up, so congratulations to both. Bolger's 1056 on a 1052, but just did not have the reaction time. And bringing it in, round two, a box. Lewis McDonald bringing it in the Castro Lane on the left side of the track out of New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. On the right side, that'd be Cody Hobart out of St. John, New Brunswick. Cody's bringing in the Chevy Camaro. Goes Cody Hobart, 866 on an 873. A little bit of a breakout, but McDonald runs 1140 on 1150. Reaction time does the job for Hobart. We'll take it to the next round. David Paulson now bringing it in on the left side of the track, 81 GMC Sierra, 385 cubic inch, 1150 dial out of Glace Bay, Nova Scotia. Sponsored by AP Trans, CJD Construction. And Chad Ramsey will line up beside him with the 70 Chevy Camaro, 1090 dial out of Wellington, Prince Edward Island. It's sponsored by City Auto Body, Brett's Auto Cleaning, and Wicked Powder Coating. Chad Ramsey moving on to the next round, 1093 with a 9 on that 1090 dial. Reaction time, no, pretty close reaction time. Just got to the finishing line in time, 12,000 difference at the bottom. So Chad, Conrad Neeson bringing it in on the right side of the track, the 95 Ford Mustang with the 427 cubic inch, 1090 dial. A little Ford Ranger on the left side dialed in at a 1252. Neeson moving on to the next round, 1098 with a 6 on that 1090 dial. 027 reaction time does the job. He'll take the Ford Mustang to the next round. Riley Green now bringing it in the Castro Lane. It's an 06 Racecraft 4-link dragster with an 889 dial out of Berwick, New Brunswick. Austin O'Donnell out of Southwest New Brunswick, 1119 dial on the 1980 Datsun 280ZX. Looks like Riley Green moving on to the next round. Austin goes through the beams, gets a red light. So Riley Green's 892, 150 miles an hour, good for the win. Moves on to the next round. And at the bottom, the win light's going to go to left lane. Looks like the dragsters moving on to the next round. 95 Camaro, dialed in at a 1354. Dragster on the right, 821 dial. Lauren Buchanan on the right side. And the win light's going to go to Lauren Buchanan. Moving on to the next round, takes that dragster, 825 on an 821 dial, good for the win. Reaction time does the job. Now we bring up Brett Ramsey out of Wellington, Prince Edward Island, bringing up the dragster on the left side of the track in your Castro Lanes. An 07 Race Tech dragster. It's got AJ Repairs, Bellows Construction, Wicked Powder Coating, Mad Docs Contracting sponsor, 890 dial. Danny Walker will line up beside him on Upper Sackville, Nova Scotia, the 02 Chevrolet Camaro. A1 Towing and Recovery, Nobles Upholstery, 790 dial. So 790 dial on Hollywood and an 890 dial on Ramsey. Ramsey getting the win, moving on to the next round. Daryl Poole now bringing it in. JP Collision and Painting on the left side of the track sponsor. 932 dial on the Vega. On the right side, James Cowie to Miramichi, the 84 Chevy Camaro. 1090 dial. James Cowie going on to the next round, 1091 on that 1090 dial, 120 miles an hour, takes the Camaro to round 3. Todd Myers now bringing it in the Castro Lane, brings in the Chevy Camaro to East Coast Prince Edward Island. Woo, they're getting hard to get out there now, folks. It's an 84 Chevy Camaro with a 565, City Auto Body sponsored, 990 dial. Looks like I got a 990 dial beside him on James Lyons machine out of Glace Bay, Nova Scotia. It's an 80 Chevy Malibu with a 434. So if both lights are green, first man down without breaking out. We'll move on to the next round. Todd Myers runs a 990 with a 5, 152 miles an hour. Lyon's had a light on him, 003 to an 091, but guess what? Lyon breaks out, runs 981 with a 9 on that pass on that 990 dial, so it looks like Myers is moving on. Sean McGooey at a Baxter's Corner on the left side of the track, bringing that machine in. It's dialed in at a 1088, the 87 Ford Ranger, Select Mechanical, Jamie Scrap Metal sponsored. On the right side, Peter Hobart out of Grand Bay Westfield, the 67 Chevy 2 Hardtop. Keels Construction Limited, Adam Justice Motorsports sponsored, 974 dial. Moving on to the next round, 991 on that 974 dial. Red light for McGooey on the left. Mark Green now bringing it in out of Berwick, New Brunswick on the left side of the track. He brings in the dragster with an 890 dial. On the right side, Jamie Champ at a Gate, Georgetown, bringing that Chevy Malibu. So a 1085 dial on the Chevy Malibu, 890 dial on the Race Tech dragster. Looks like Mark Green's moving on next round. Champ had a light on him, 003, but breaks out at the top, 1082 on a 1085. So Mark Green's 891 on an 890, good for the win. All right, here's our finals in the junior dragster, folks. It looks like we've got Central Auto Power in both juniors. Madeline Justison on the left side, bringing in the 218 E&E Junior Dragster in the Castro Lane. Adam Justice Motorsport, Keels Construction, Nikki Cake sponsored, 791 dial. Lily Arsenault at Lutz Mountain on the right side in the Pro Construction Lane. The 08 Casey Outlaw Jr., 791 dial. EA Delivery, Central Auto sponsored. If the lights are both green, looks like it's the first person down without breaking out. It's going to pick up a Wally in your final junior dragster. Madeline Justison just picked herself up a Wally. That's right. 034 reaction time did the job. She ran a 793 on a 791. 82 miles per hour, picked herself up a Wally. Arsenault was there, 793 on a 791, but a 107 reaction time, just couldn't get the stripe. So she'll pick up runner-up, so great job. Congratulations to both. So we're bringing them in. That's right. This is your final in your stock, super stock coming at you. Your John Scotty Canadian Championship Series final coming at you. Jeremy Keynes in the Castro Lane on the left side. 83 Chevy Monte Carlo 1117 dial. On the right side, Mike Ingram out of Middle Sackville, Nova Scotia. The 68 Chevelle with a 396 dialed in at 1119. Keynes coming out of Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. So the Wally's definitely going to Nova Scotia, but who's taking it? Will it be Mike or Jeremy? And the Wally's going to Mike Ingram. Picks himself up another Wally. That's right, the 68 Chevelle goes all the way. 11.19 with a 2 on 11.19 dial. Even gets a 009 reaction time. So Mike Ingram picks himself up a Wally. And Jeremy Keynes will be the runner-ups. Congratulations to both. So we're bringing them in on the left side of the track in your Castro Lane. Chris Hobart with the 2010 Miller Dragster. 584 big block Chevy Power. Keels Construction Limited. Adam Justin's Motorsport sponsored. 475 dial. Dave Powell will line up beside him on a Bay Roberts Newfoundland. The 92 Ford, well, actually it's a Ford Mustang. 632 cubic inch big block power. 478 dial. So 478 on Roberts from Powell. 475 for Hobart. Hobart out of New Brunswick, Powell out of Newfoundland. Where's the Wally going, folks? Chris Hobart just picked himself up a Wally. That's right. 003 reaction time does the job. Runs a 477 on a 475, 145 miles an hour. Picks up first place. So congratulations, Chris Hobart, picking up a Wally. Powell's 030 on reaction time, runs a 481 on a 478, couldn't catch the stripe. Dave Powell will be runner-up. Congratulations to both.
Thanks goes out to LJ Patterson for loaning out this awesome tractor for track maintenance, and also all these other supporters of the track. Thanks everyone. Not only do these companies support the track, but you can too just by being a spectator, so go out and support your local track. Alright, with all that out of the way, it was a crazy, busy, and long day. The track was rained out the day before, so things got doubled up today, which is why I'm missing some sections of the races as they were split up. I tried to keep as much cohesion as possible, but it is what it is. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to get lost in whatever you do.